What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be taking another look at the Fossil Cup, but today we're going to be looking at a team that is kind of focused on fast move damage. Now, you wouldn't look at this team immediately and think fast move damage because you have Poliwrath and Steelix, but I mean, Ludicolo is definitely a fast move damage Pokemon. It's a Razor Leafer, but Poliwrath and Steelix you might not know right away, and that's kind of what I'm going for with this team, is I don't want my opponent to know that they're about to get triple KO'd without even using any shield. So without further ado, let's hop into some battles and take a look at Steelix on the safe swap and Ludicolo as our closer. Into the first match, we've got a fantastic lead. We've got Shadow Dugtrio. So this is a Mud Slapper. They get out into an Araquanid. And Araquanid is immediately met with the Steelix. Steelix has a good matchup here because it resists the Bug Bite. And it has super effective Thunder Fangs, and we can lower their defense with Psychic Fangs to ramp up this damage. That said, my opponent is on Bubble Beam, so even though we lowered their defense, they immediately lowered my attack, and we're basically hitting for neutral damage for what it would have been normally. They have a second Bubble Beam coming my way, but here comes a second Psychic Fangs as well, and we should be able to maintain a switch in this game here. They end up going for a Psychic Fangs catch onto a Jellicent, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm, go for a Psychic Fangs here to lower their defense, and now I'm going to instantly pivot into my Ludicolo. Ludicolo, obviously as a Razor Leafer with their defense lowered, is shredding through the HP of my opponent. I do not expect my opponent to bait a double resisted Shadow Ball, so I am going to finally use my shields, and I'm actually going to double shield here because I realize Ludicolo has a lot of play into the remaining Pokemon left on their team, a Mud Slapper and a low HP Araquanid. This can only be enough for a Bubble Beam, so I can definitely let this double resisted move go, and it is. Now we get the full Razor Leaf farm down, and my opponent understands they no longer have a win con, so they just resign the match. Tough lead in the next match, Poliwrath into Golisopod, so I'm going to safe switch into my Steelix, and I'm going to take a super effective Aqua Jet here. Now you could argue that maybe you should just stay in that matchup with Poliwrath because all of their charge moves are resisted as well, but by doing this, I actually bait out a Gastrodon, which is kind of nice, and now I can full send an Earthquake to do massive damage, but my opponent actually respects it with a shield. But now I can just align my Ludicolo onto this Gastrodon, get a full Razor Leaf farm down, and force my opponent to go for only non-stab body slams in this match. 2 body slams will connect against the Ludicolo, but that's only going to put us in the yellow. We get the full Razor Leaf farm down. What is going to come into the Ludicolo? It is a Ferrothorn. Now Ferrothorn will be met with the Poliwrath, but their Golisopod instantly pivots back in, but their charge moves are completely walled here as well. So I'm just going to go for the Ice Punch, and now I'm going to commit to the full counter farm down. I can live one charge move, so I will let one go. It is the Aqua Jet. That doesn't do that much damage. Here comes the second Aqua Jet. I'm going to shield this one up, and now I'm going to go for the full farm down of the Golisopod, coming out with a little bit of energy for the Ferrothorn as well. No baits here, going for the Dynamic Punch, hoping my opponent tries to call the bait. They do not, unfortunately, but I can come back with my Ludicolo, force my opponent to go for energy by over-farming here. And now that they've thrown their energy, they need to once again make it to back-to-back Power Whips in order to come out of this game with the win. But they're not going to get there before I get to a Dynamic Punch. With the residual energy stored on the Poliwrath, Dynamic Punch connects against the Ferrothorn, and we are able to take that win. Okay, Poliwrath into Poliwrath. We've got mirror leads in the next match. Just going to stay in this matchup. I expect my opponent to go for a Dynamic Punch immediately, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as well, except I'm baiting with an Ice Punch here because my opponent will likely respect this, but they don't. They actually call the bait, which is kind of a nice play. Maybe my opponent's not running Dynamic Punch, and they go for an Icy Wind, so that clues me into the fact that they're probably not on a Dynamic Punch at all. So at this point, I'm going to full send the Dynamic Punch. I do have a slight pacing advantage because Ice Punch is cheaper than Icy Wind, and we are able to grab Switch there. I kind of just am forced to stay in this matchup here and go down with that energy after connecting with those counters because I need to align my Steelix here, even though Steelix doesn't have a great matchup either, but Ludicolo especially has double resisted Razor Leafs, whereas Steelix is bulky enough to live 2 Power Whips, and we can always connect with an Earthquake here. I will be letting this next charge move go. It is the Power Whip. and here comes a second Power Whip. So now I am going to respect this energy. At this point, I'm just going to full send the Earthquake. There's no point in baiting. I need to at least start grabbing shields or get them really low. They call the bait, which is nice because now I can make it to a Psychic Fangs against their Berserker in the back. They'll know this is not enough for an Earthquake, so they will let this go. But by letting that go, guess what? Berserker being glassy and with their defense lowered, here comes resisted Razor Leafs. We live one foul play, basically calling the close combat bait. And look at this, we're going to be able to fully Razor Leaf farm down Berserker before they can even make it to back-to-back charge moves, and they're going to lose with both shields intact. Poliwrath into Scizor in the next game. This is a pretty good lead. Obviously, they do have neutral, sorry, not neutral. There's literally nothing neutral. Both Fury Cutter and Night Slash are resisted, but Trailblaze is super effective. So I will respect the Trailblaze. I probably could have let the first one go, but they end up safe switching into a Jellicent. Jellicent is immediately met with a Ludicolo. I will let one move go because I've already down a shield. And I know Ludicolo has some decent bulk, so it can survive one. At this point, we get them really, really low, so I'm okay with just letting this go and getting a little bit of an energy lead on maybe my Steelix. Am I going to go for a very aggressive resisted counter farm down? No, I am going to come in with the Steelix, get the farm down with the Thunder Fangs. Are they going to come back in with the Scizor? No, they're actually ABA Bugged Steel with a Fortress in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up to the Earthquake. I'm actually going to full send the Earthquake here, not expecting my opponent to expect an Earthquake, but they do. They actually respect that damage, but now we can counter, just combo play with the Dynamic Punch. We actually grab both shields from my opponent, which is pretty nice. I will let this go. If they want to full send the Earthquake, they can. It is a resisted Rock Tomb. That connects and doesn't do that much damage. I now am able to make it to a second Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch puts them deep into the red. They're going to come back in with the Scizor. And they realize that if I just no shield their next charge move, they're going to Thunder Fang down their whole team, so we are able to take that win. Fantastic lead in the next match. We've got Poliwrath into Lucario, and my opponent is staying in this matchup. They also end up throwing on alignment, so I can just shield once, fully counter farm them down, and come out absolutely loaded with energy. Of course, they are probably ABA weak to the Poliwrath, which is why they stayed in that matchup for so long. So I'm actually going to pivot, bank all of that energy, and now I've got my Steelix on their Jellicent. Of course, one Surf is super effective damage, but I can live one because Steelix is very bulky, and now here comes a Psychic Fangs to my opponent. They know they can let that go. My opponent's not switching out of this matchup either, so now I'm starting to wonder if they're also weak to the Steelix. But they're not. They just have a Ferrothorn in the back. They do overfarm quite a bit, which allows me to actually get to an Earthquake here, which is nice. Earthquake connects as well. That puts them pretty low. And at this point, all I have to do is come in with the Poliwrath, get off a charge move, and this game is over. Power Whip does connect. Can I get to a charge move here on my Poliwrath before I'm getting KO'd? The answer is no, because I'm going to end up not throwing for some reason. It is the Power Whip. It picks up the knockout. Maybe I'm just going to go for a full Razor Leaf farm down. These Razor Leaves are double resisted, but they do not look it. And now they're going to connect with the Thunder. Can we get to a charge move? It looks like no, but the opponent can't get to a charge move either. And now it's Razor Leaf versus Bullet Seed, and Ludicolo just Razor Leaf farm down the entire team with a shield deficit. So thank you, Ludicolo. But into the next match, we've got Poliwrath into Scizor. They're going to safe switch into a Jellicent. Where have we seen this before? Okay, now we're going to come in with our Ludicolo. Probably going to shield up the first, expecting them to full send the Shadow Ball, not baiting a double resisted Surf. They can make it to another Shadow Ball here, but that's okay. We can live one. Just didn't really want them to be able to bait on the second. So surviving the second Shadow Ball, coming out with a charge move loaded for the Scizor that comes back in. Is it going to be the Scizor? It is. And they are on Fury Cutter, so they will get the super effective farm down here. But here comes a Scald. We grab that shield right back, which is fantastic. In comes the Poliwrath. They're going to safe switch into a Golisopod, and Golisopod is going to be met with a Steelix. Steelix, of course, will be met with a super effective Aqua Jet, but because we have super effective Thunder Fangs in this matchup as well, we can actually live one, go for a Psychic Fangs, and go for the full farm down. The fact that my opponent throws right away is actually nice for me here because their defense is already lowered. So in comes a Poliwrath, which can counter farm down the Glycepod. We know that their charge moves are completely walled here unless they're running Aerial Ace, but most aren't in this meta. And now we've got a Poliwrath with a shield against a Scizor and a huge energy lead. So we're already at the back-to-back dynamic punches. There's one. Here comes a second before my opponent can make it. Two back-to-back Trailblazes. That picks up the knockout. Now all we have to do is counter farm down the Glycepod, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got Poliwrath into Lucario once again. This is a fantastic lead, but this one is going to safe switch into a Gastrodon and Trainer. Gastrodon is not a safe switch when Ludicolo exists. Ludicolo is going to be able to take a Body Slam, no problem, and get the full farm down. Are they going to come back in with the Lucario? No, they've got a Fortress in the back instead, and Fortress is now going to be met with a Scald. This is stab damage, and Scald is a pretty good move, so it actually does some pretty sizable chip to the Fortress. The opponent does overfarm pretty much as they could, understanding that they can't really get the full farm down, and they will pick up the knockout with the Rock Tomb, but now I can just align my Steelix here, basically sacrifice it. Even if they full send an Earthquake, that's fine. I just need my Lucario in this, my Poliwrath in this endgame, and that's why you see me instantly pivot there. All I have to do is shield one charge move from the Lucario. It will be the super effective Thunder Punch. No, there's going to be a power-up punch, but there's nothing my opponent can do that's left in this matchup. We are going to get the full counter farm down, and once again, my opponent loses with two shields intact. Into next match, we've got Poliwrath into Gastrodon. This is a neutral lead. Of course, this isn't where you'd like to see it on the team. We'd like to see it on the Ludicolo, but this is a neutral enough matchup that we can just stay in and play it out. I will go for the dynamic punch right before they decide to throw their Earth Power, and they actually let that go. They live on 1 HP. Unfortunate, but we can just shield this. That counter will go through, and we will be able to maintain switch here. What's going to be in the back? It's a Glycepod, so I'm going to save switch into my Steelix, try and bait out anything that maybe like a Ferrothorn that my Ludicolo doesn't want to see. But my opponent is staying in this matchup, so now I'm just going to go for a Psychic Fangs. This will, of course, lower my opponent's defense, and these fast moves are already adding up quite a bit, so they actually take the charge move and then instantly reset it onto their Scizor in the back. Scizor will be met with a Psychic Fangs of their own, and they're going to be forced to throw energy, or else I'm going to do way too much damage, and they do realize that, so they end up throwing their energy. But at this point, I feel like it's too little too late. I can come in with my Poliwrath, get a one counter through, which is enough to basically Razor Leaf farm them down, even though it's double resisted. Trailblaze picks up the knockout, in comes Ludicolo. Guess what? Razor Leaf farm down, and now it's going to be Razor Leaf farm down the Glycepod. They're only going to make it to one charge move here, so we will just respect this X-Scissor, get the full farm down, and once again, this team is able to win with my opponent having two shields remaining. Into the next match, fantastic lead, doesn't get better than this. Magcargo, they're going to safe switch into a Ferrothorn, and I do not have a good response to Ferrothorn in the back, so I'm actually kind of forced to stay in this matchup. What I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm a little bit, go for a dynamic punch, and once this connects, I'm probably going to safe switch into my Steelix, and no, instead my opponent actually just lets that go. So where do I go from here? Do I just stay in this matchup? No, it is a Jellicent in the back, so instantly going to pivot into my Steelix. I'm going to overfarm a little bit because if that Magcargo decides to come back in, I want to be able to threaten it with an Earthquake. And if my opponent isn't expecting it, here comes a double super effective stab charge move from the Steelix. Do they respect the damage? They do not. And that connects, and my opponent just resigns the match because, yeah, after that, there's no recovering, especially, my opponent doesn't know it yet, but I Ludicolo in the back. Another fantastic lead, same lead as the previous match. This opponent safe switches into a Glycepod, and they're actually still on Fury Cutter, which is kind of surprising. Shadow Claw is definitely the way to go in this meta specifically. In the Open Great League, I'm not so sure, but we are able to meet them with the Steelix, able to connect with these Thunder Fangs, get the Psychic Fangs. I will have to commit a shield here in order to maintain switch, but that's fine. I really would like to maintain switch in this matchup because Poliwrath is super dominant into Magcargo, and we are able to get the full farm down. And if my opponent doesn't throw, I can make it to an Earthquake here, which can threaten a shield or the knockout from my opponent, so my opponent will have to give me a shield back, and they don't. They just let that go. They then come in with a Lantern in the back, unable to make it to an Earthquake before my opponent makes it to a Surf. So I will just go for a Psychic Fangs. They actually respect it. Can I make it to another Psychic Fangs? I can. So now their defense is 2 times lowered. They cannot reset it. We have a Ludicolo in the back, but which does take neutral damage from Thunderbolt. So what I'm actually going to do here is come in with my Poliwrath, get 1 turn lag, but that's fine because I'm just sacrificing it here. It is the Thunderbolt. Can I make it to a charge move as well? That would be pretty nice. Looks like not quite. Looks like I should have been able to survive that, but that's fine because 2 Razor Leafs will be able to pick up the knockout. I can shield any 1 charge move here. Thunderbolt wouldn't have KO'd anyways, but we are able to take that win. So yeah, this is a pseudo fast move damage team that covers its weaknesses really well. I'm going to be completely honest, Ludicolo surprised me. Those Razor Leafs do so much damage, even in resisted matchups. I mean, those were double resisted Razor Leafs in a lot of those matchups where I completely farmed down my opponents, which is like ridiculous. That's completely nuts. But that said, I think Steelix is amazing in this meta as a safe switch. There's no real like hard answers besides Gastrodon. Gastrodon is really the only one. Mudboys suck. So maybe cover your Mudboy weaknesses with like, I don't know, Ferrothorn, Ludicolo. Ludicolo is probably the way to go. You could do like a Ludicolo lead, Steelix safe switch, and then I don't know, something in the back that deals with Ludicolo's weaknesses, like a Magcargo or something, and then Steelix to bait out your Mudboys. That could be a fun team to try out. Maybe Heatran in the back. Hell, that could be really cool. Firefang, Mawile, you get the idea. So, but yeah, this is a very strong team. Very fast paced. These wins were very quick. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.